Hi there, it's Chris Hamilton here with Sales Tip a Day, www.salestipaday.com, and today I'm interviewing Mike Skrypnek, who has written a book called Philanthropy, An Inspired Process. And the reason I'm talking to Mike is I thought you could learn some valuable lessons from him on publishing a book and using it for part of your sales process. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and I'm going to ask him, why did you actually write a book?
So I wrote a book, Chris, because it was important to me. My business is leaning towards philanthropy and nonprofit organizations, and I support their investment advisory and implementation. So for me, it was important that I maybe put something out there to the world that may inspire someone who is in a CEO or a leadership position to be able to maybe have an impact as they investigate their philanthropy and possibly have a bigger impact in the world. I mean, someone inspired Bill Gates, someone inspired Oprah, someone inspired Bono, locally someone inspired Brett Wilson to make that step. And so what I'm hoping is ultimately that's ultimately the reason I wrote a book. Secondly, in my profession, I find it challenging to access those leaders and CEOs of organizations that I want to work with. Right? So I, right now, can go to an executive and present what we do as a service in the investment advisory and policy side, and they truly understand why they would need my service, right? But the challenge is then they have to talk to their board. And now when they speak with their board, there are 5 to 10 or 15 different people with different opinions of how things should be done. Mm-hmm. And so with all those varying opinions, they really want to know in the board level in 5 minutes why the heck we should listen to that fellow. Right, and so by putting a book which is directed to their peers, we may be able, or I may be able to access maybe an hour or two of that time that is needed in order to convey our message.
Excellent. It's a great idea and a great way to go about it. Now, how did you actually go about writing the book? What kind of process did you use to go from thought to actually paper to actually having something in a book format like this today?
And admittedly, it's not an epic.
Yep.
Right? This is not an epic. This is a small book. It's easy to read, probably airport style. But you know, a good friend of mine always says, "How to eat an elephant, one bite at a time." That's kind of how the book process goes. You know, one of the things you do is you have to actually sit down at the table and do it. So I sat at the table and said, "Okay, I'll write a book," and chose a topic. Originally, it was to be more of a guide, kind of a philanthropy for dummies, kind of a guidebook. And it took a different shape over time. But for me, you know, I set a schedule and tried to get through it, had moments where I had a month or two of complete writer's block, and I learned what all the process of being a writer is all about. But basically, I got to a point where I set a schedule. So every week I would meet with an editor/writer, and this person who I brought on the fold, who was ultimately my publisher, would keep me accountable. So I would meet with her, and after an hour of deliberating over what I had just written and tearing it apart, she would say, "Here's your homework and time to go back to work and have this done by next Thursday." And so for me, that worked perfectly. For others, I think it may work differently, but you know, I had to get a certain amount done each week in order to meet my deadline, right? And so that helped a lot. So once we got to that point, you know, I think that going at it a second time, I'd probably be able to write a book on my own and set those guidelines now that I understand what the process of writing is all about. But there is a critical stage that you absolutely need a publisher or a professional consultant to help you through that, and that's like the final mile or whatever of a race. It's that last 30 to 60 days where you have to package a book, you have to put all the right labeling on it, you have to put a cover on it, you have to put the cover sleeves on it, you have to know where to load it up, get it on Amazon, and put it in a publishing mechanism. So all that really is a skill that I have no time or interest in doing, and there are experts who do it really well.
Gotcha. How would someone find something like that? Just look online, Google something like that?
Yeah, you can probably Google your typical publishing company in a number of places. Now you can go to the expensive route where you get a publicist and a publisher, and you're looking at a $50,000 commitment. So that's an expensive annual touch, and you better sell a lot of books or do a lot of speaking events if you're going to put one out there for that kind of cost. But you may get opportunities in high-profile interviews, TV, media, or otherwise that you maybe wouldn't have gotten without a publicist. With the basic publisher, you can get a very simple published book. You can get it up on Amazon. You can get some marketing and maybe some interviews out of it with the local media. If you go to the self-publishing route, for example, like Lulu, which is something you and I have discussed, and you think even Amazon is going to begin to offer a self-publishing angle, then you're really looking at mass sales to anonymous people through a very simple platform, but you still have to put the time in to get the book actually published and put through their system. So if you're willing to do that, I mean, you're willing to write a book, you're probably willing to put a few hours of that effort in. If you're willing to do that, then I think that's a cost-effective, simple way to get online book sales.
Excellent. So you go through Lulu, and as you say, Amazon's actually going into that venture as well, so people.
Yeah, I saw something about that on our Author Central. So there's a
Okay.
page you go in as an author, and you can check your sales. I got sales from, St. Louis, and I'm listed on some Amazon bookstore in India. It's very strange to me. I find it odd. And but yeah, you can just go and do it yourself too.
And you also said that you've seen some of the impact actually on your own personal website internally for the company you work for. More hits coming to your site, obviously. So it appears that it's actually working and drawing attention in, which is really good. One last thing, just so that people can find you or figure out where to get the book. Where can they actually end up getting the book that you've written here?
So you can find it, Philanthropy and Inspired Process. You can find it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or on our website, www.theinspiredprocess.com.
And if anyone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can call me directly, 1-403-695-1412.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Mike, for taking the time out today and talking to us about the process. And hopefully people can learn from that. And if they want to publish their own book, realize that it is actually a mechanism for them to attract more viewers and eyeballs to them as well. And stuff like that.
It's an excellent tool.
Yeah. Anyways, Mike, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, Chris.